to the Kayak Fishing Obsessed podcast. We'll be sitting down with a fresh guest each week. Someone who shares the same kayak fishing passion that runs through our veins. We're talking kayak anglers, kayak companies, lure experts. Heck, anyone who's got a story to tell about landing the big ones from a kayak. We're setting our sights on becoming the #1 kayak fishing podcast in the world. You'll get a chuckle, a grin, and hey, maybe even a belly laugh. Because we believe in the power of humor. But above all, we're here to educate and inspire. So, whether you're a seasoned kayak angler or just dipping your toes into this exhilarating world, join us on the Kayak Fishing Obsessed podcast. It's time to reel in adventure, camaraderie, and the joy of the catch. Here's your host, Darren Wendell.
Welcome to episode number 46 of the KFO, Kayak Fishing Obsessed podcast, brought to you by the Wendell Fishing YouTube channel. If you're coming in, hearing about this for the first time, maybe from the podcast, head over to that channel. Over 900 videos on the subject of kayak fishing. And if you happen to stop by, go leave a comment. I do a pretty good job of responding to those. I'm starting to lose my ability to respond to everybody like I enjoy doing. So I'm really just focusing on those who are subscribers. But I'll respond to you if you're one of those, or if there's really great questions, sometimes I get around to it. If you're not live and you're listening in from the podcast, one, thank you. Maybe you're working on your kayak, out fishing, driving to or from work, whatever it is, whatever you're doing, I would love to hear from you. Please hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and I will respond, especially if you DM me. It has been a wild month this past month, which is probably why you haven't seen a podcast come out of the KFO for about 4 or 5 weeks. I got a new job. Then I went on a cruise with my wife. I got sick toward the end of the cruise with COVID. I was laid up like 10 days straight because of COVID. I got the one that like kicked your butt. And then it was Halloween. And then I got strep. And then I got better. And then it was time for the kayak bass fishing and knucklehead tournament. And so it's been a wild last month, but have no fear. We got a great pipeline of guests coming up. Casey kayak fishing on the 28th. Nate Goodwin fishing on the 5th, Matt's fishing mission on the 12th, mainstream fishing on the 19th, and I just booked Bass Fishing HQ for the first Tuesday of 2024. So pretty excited about that. But tonight we're going to be discussing the Knuklhed Bass Fishing Championship, and I have Jay, the bearded dad, fishing on. There he is. Welcome to the show, brother. I have John from Creek Fishing Adventures. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey.
And I got JT from Hickman Outdoors. These are all team captains for the Knucklehead. Welcome, fellas. How you guys doing?
Good, great. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So let's hop into this really quick. Also, if you notice that we're responding to comments and you're not seeing them, it's because we're simulcasting this across multiple channels. And so you'd be like, I didn't see that. Where'd that come from? Well, you might be on Gramps' channel or John or Jay's. And so just keep that in mind. You're in the right place. So let me kind of, if you're new, maybe this is the first podcast you're listening to, or you're like, okay, Knucklehead, many people on know what that is. But in case you don't, the Knucklehed Bass Fishing Series took place this summer. And each content creator had 4 one-month tournaments that if you won that month tournament, you were on that team. And then we all went down to the Knucklehed Bass Fishing Championship, which is on Lake Guntersville just a couple of weekends ago. And so to give it some perspective here, so this just wasn't a tournament just with like 65 anglers down in Guntersville. The pre-tournaments for this, there was a lot of people involved. We had over 416 anglers were a part of the Knucklehed Bass Fishing Series, and a total of 9,761 bass were posted. Right, and these are just the ones that were posted. Most people wouldn't post an upgrade. And so this is probably even double or triple. And we're talking probably 30,000 bass that were caught just in the series. And then we head down to Lake Guntersville a couple weekends ago for the championship, where we have 13 teams, around 65 anglers, and there are 342 bass uploaded. Once again, probably triple that number because a lot of them weren't upgrades. And so it's been a wild summer. This is my first tournament, so I'm looking at it from a different perspective than probably some of the other gents around the board here. But what's back up? I'm going to propose the question to you three on the channel here. What did your pre-fishing strategy going into the tournament look like for your team?
Hey, Darren, let me back you up for a second and talk a little bit. Let me talk a little bit about the origin of where this whole thing spawned from, which, as you know, we called it the Hero Cup, and it happened on Veterans Day. But that was literally the 1-year anniversary of a weekend on Veterans Day spent down at Chad's campground with myself and my 2 Freedom Squad brothers, Jeremy and Matt, along with a few other veterans, some guys from Heroes on the Water, and other veterans talking about different ways that we can get more people involved in kayak fishing. And so we threw out all kinds of different ideas and laughed and joked and, cried a little bit too, because it was Veterans Day. And, there's a lot of feelings that go along with that throughout the veteran and first responder community. Obviously also coming off of COVID, but we threw out some different ideas. So come springtime, Chad was working on, how can we get more rec anglers, bank fishing, a lot of the folks that enjoy John's content and those of us who like to kayak fish, how could we get more people involved in the sport? And that's kind of where this whole thing grew out of. And of course, obviously Chad, being Chad, knowing YouTube and knowing plenty of different YouTubers, we had a great core audience that we could reach out to. And we started with like the base of the folks who had been fishing in the Catch 22 Challenge, which is the, charitable thing where the year before we had raised money for Mission 22. This year it was for Heroes on the Water. Everybody makes a $22 donation and you upload basically your best 22 fish throughout the season. And we thought that was a great way because, it was bank fishing, kayak fishing, boat fishing. There's a category for everybody, multi-species. But from that, it was like, how can we get more people into like kayak fishing and all of that? And so that's kind of where the Knucklehead started and came from, because Knucklehead is the community of followers of, Chad's YouTube channel. But that's kind of where this whole thing was born. And obviously we wanted to mean something, because that's why it was named the Hero Cup, because the event was to be held on Veterans Day. So as you probably can guess, that event meant a lot to a lot of us that were promoting it as veteran recreational therapy and things like that. But that's kind of some of the back history. And then the guests, the rest is just history. Chad reached out to a bunch of different, influencers who were in this space, both bank and kayak angling. And man, what a season. I mean, I know about you guys, but every month was a challenge. And I mean, those of us who fish like in the KBF state challenges, these people were hammering even harder than the people who, were trying to go win money. There were people that were literally, every weekend, every spare minute they had trying to qualify for their favorite captain's team. And it was phenomenal watching. I mean, just the blood, sweat, and tears that everybody put into just trying to make a team before we even got to Ditto Landing. So that was pretty incredible. And I want to thank every single one of you who got out there this year and competed and worked your butt off, learned to catch photo release techniques, and really put the work in, because we had the pleasure of just showing up. Y'all had to put in the work. So again, thank you.
I love it. The origin story. Thank you so much for that. So yeah, it was wild. I mean, I had guys telling me like, "Oh, I'm skipping work today. I'm calling in sick. It's toward the end of the month, and I am just so close to taking that spot on the team." So, whoo, wild and crazy. So I just realized, which is kind of crazy, my battery is 19% remaining. So I'm going to ask a question. Gramps, if you can moderate while I go get my cable upstairs. But let us know what your Jay, John, what did it look like with your team once you had your team solidified? What were you guys doing in like as a pre-fishing strategy? Because Jay, you and I were talking a little bit, and you were like, you had people dropping off your team, you had people dropping on your team. Did you even get around to like meeting and strategizing? What did that look like for you? And while you guys do that, I'm gonna go get my power cable.
So for my team, it was a little bit different because I came into this whole series like in the middle of July.
Yep.
So I really only got 6 weeks for building my team. You know what I mean? Because before that was Clay Guida, so he had it for May, June, and then halfway through July. So once Chad called me in the beginning of July, and we got everything official halfway through July. So really, I was only fully involved for August. But I mean, regardless, like the guys that ended up on my team were like awesome dudes, and like Darren said, like they all earned their spot. So I don't know if you guys as captains felt like this, like we made it there, but these guys made it there, like they earned their spot.
Yep.
So I was super intimidated coming in, just like going against these guys, not against these guys, with these guys, but I knew that they were going to catch some hogs.
Yeah, I didn't want to let my guys down. I was like, I'm glad I didn't have to win to get on because there's no way.
Yeah, seriously, man.
I got to is my mic loud or is that miss me?
You're good.
You're good.
Okay. I got to get in on it early, so I got to see the whole thing transpire. And my months were like March, April, May, and June, so it was real early. So my guys had, so I got like a group text together once everybody after everybody that won, I was able to call that person. So I'm terrible about doing stuff like that, but I try to make myself like, all right, I have to contact this guy, and I hate calling people like that. So I got like the information. I'd contact them. One of the guys already knew, and then two of the guys were from Georgia, like 2 hours from where I live, which is crazy. One was from North Carolina, and one was from Florida. So we were all in the southeast area. And they all seem really good. And they've caught some big fish, and it pushed them to fish way harder than they said they like ever had. So they said it was kind of cool because there's like one guy had like 110 inches or something like that in Georgia. Dang. In North Georgia. He found this little lake that I had driven past before, and you'd have never thought there'd be like 22-inch bass in there.
Jeez.
So like hearing the stories and hearing like these guys go out and earn it was really cool. I felt bad for like the second place guys. Some of them like fished really hard. So and that's where next year I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna handle, like, I'd love to give out something for second and third place, but I really wasn't sure. I didn't do it this year, but was able to do a few giveaways, and I still got one to give away. But yeah, and coming into it, we went down a couple days early to get some fishing in.
Yeah, you did. You got me nervous. I was like, crap, John is on them, and I'm still sitting up here in Ohio, and you're already catching monsters.
Yeah, what was that big you caught like your first day down there?
This fifth cast.
I had the best bluff. So I'm meeting up with one of the guys I never met before. I'm like, meet me at this ramp. I actually brought down one of my kayaks he was going to use. So it's like 3 p.m. It's already getting dark, So I'm like, I'm going to put in. He'll be here in like 10 minutes. 5 or 6 casts. I fish right by the bank. I catch like a 5.5 pounder. It was like 21 and something. I was like, no way. I was like, I'm posting this just to mess with everybody.
You messed with me. It worked.
I didn't catch anything else bigger. I actually didn't
Everybody
catch any big
down
ones
there
the
caught one that's bigger than my PB on a catch board. My only goal was to try to find something that was 21 1/4. And it's like pre-fishing. I'm sitting there going, what? Yeah. Come on.
You had me worried, John. You really did. I looked at that and I was like, crap, he's already on him. I've never even been on the lake yet. I'm just looking at like Google photos of it. But I'm I'm also picking apart your background. I'm like, oh, it's like the bro's at a marina. Okay, he's fishing a Helgermite. What else he got in here?
Well, everybody knew he's at a marina. It's like, okay, which one is he at? Yeah.
Love it. Jay, I missed your story. Sorry about that. Gramps, did you share yours?
Oh, no, not yet. I was going to let Jay. Well, so pre-fishing wise, we were down there. A few weeks earlier because we qualified for the KBF championships due for last year's at the KBF National Championship. We were down there. Jeremy and I both qualified in the top 100. So we were qualified already for the KBF Challenge Series Championship and the Trail Series, participating in the Invitational, which is like KBF's biggest, most, but there's no way we're winning those. We just go to hang out with the cool cats like Christine and Casey Reed and, all the top hammers in the kayak industry, because it's fun fishing with those guys, because just like we love meeting out, it's cool kind of watching everybody who kind of does this for a living and going out and sharing some water with them too. It was really cool. But we were down there, and of course, we've never been there before. We don't have any locals on the team to kind of help kind of give us a head start. Jeremy had to do his, video study for about a month and a half, 2 months out. And then, he's tournament fished longer than anybody, because he used to do the stuff in a boat way back. So between map study, YouTube study, we kind of had 3 or 4 different areas. And in leading up to pre-fishing before Knucklehead, we were pre-fishing. We were literally using these championships to prepare for the Knucklehead.
Right.
And so, it was days of hitting 10 or more boat ramps in each of the days, just to kind of see what was what, to get a clue. Because if you're not from there and you don't have anybody that's down in that area, you all know, if you did any scouting, there are a million boat ramps and a million, areas, and you're just trying to figure stuff out. So we literally used the KBF championships as our Knucklehead pre-fishing. And, we did pretty good. I finished in the top 30. Our buddy OEF5 finished, 22. I was 26. And then Jeremy had big bass one day, won $1,000. So, we were on an area that with decent fish, and, we knew where you guys would be fishing, because we knew there would be a lot of people fishing there, because you were literally one bay south of us.
Yep.
If you go under the bridge by the boat ramp you put in it, we were literally on the other side of that. That's how close we were. And of course, you saw Liz over there. But then pre-fishing, we did it again. We spent a lot of time up at Wheeler eliminating water, because a lot of people, say, sometimes it's you're not going to get as many fish, but you can get bigger fish. So we spent time up there as well. But we did a whole lot of running around the 2 weeks prior, and then the few days that we were there beforehand. But I don't think any of us, especially pre-fishing for the actual Knucklehead, caught a fish maybe bigger than 19 or so, except for Alex, who goes out on the 3 fish pre-fish, catches 2 20s, and misses a 7 at the boat to win those, KBF. But, that was our pre-fishing. So we were just going to stick with what we knew, because we know we were in an area that held the fish. But, we just had to stick with kind of what we knew from history, and not try to, overreach. And, we just wanted to put fish up on the board. You know how that goes.
Yeah, 100%. So my strategy was a little bit, so I was kind of lucky. As people were winning the tournaments, a lot of times they were winning multiple teams, and so they could take their pick of whose teams they wanted to be on. And so the first person to win, I believe his name was Greg Massa. And the good news is Greg lives on Wheeler. And so he knows Wheeler like the back of his hand. And then, of course, Guntersville, he gets on every once in a while. So we had that in my back pocket. If you guys know Greg, he is the owner of 3dyak.com. He does all kinds of 3D printed kayak fishing accessories, which is kind of neat. I got a few on my yak myself. And then Jake Tomlin out of Cleveland, he just started getting into fishing this year. And we started fishing together, and he had like the best year ever. I mean, PB after PB after PB, which was kind of wild and crazy. And so we're driving down together, but we have no clue. Like Lake Guntersville, knowing about it, giant lake, and of course we're doing the Google Map stuff, and like, holy crap, this thing is like, if you drive one end to the other, you're looking at like a 60-minute drive, just driving. Absolutely massive. Where in the world are they? Then it gets to Tammy Sanchez. Comes out of nowhere with like over 100 inches, 103 inches out of New Hampshire. I was like, holy cow, girl's a hammer. Glad she's on my team. She can pick up over 100 in northeast.
Yep.
That's awesome. Then it comes down to the last month, and Jack McRoberts. Don't know a whole lot about him, but he wins like 3 different people's teams. I think Fluke Masters, and Jay, I think he won yours, he won mine. I was like, man, I want this guy on my team. I don't even know where he's at. So I find his email address. I was like, hey, man, I know you won 3 different, but I'd love for you to be on my team. He's like, yeah, sure. And to come to find out, he lives like 45 minutes from Guntersville and fishes it all the time. And so I got everybody together on like a call like this, and we start strategizing. Like Jake and I are like, and Tammy are like, we have no clue what we're walking into. We're really leaning heavily on Greg and Jack. And so they told us what they thought. Wheeler is known for, spotted bass. They're going to be smaller. Guntersville known for the monsters. And so for this particular tournament, probably a better idea to fish Guntersville over Wheeler. But it still wasn't off the table because there were some strategies at play nonetheless. And so Jack ended up like taking the entire week off. He fished like 35 hours of pre-fishing that week before to pattern those bass for us before we got there. I was like, man, this bro's putting in the work. And so, I mean, of course that helped because I walked in, I was like, Jack, where should we put in our boat? He's like, you got to go here. And so that's kind of like we had a text thread going as well. Of course, John, your photo made our text thread because everyone's like, what the crap? Where's he at? Jack, Greg, where's he at? What's in the background? Where's this man fishing at? Where's he pulling in 21 plus inch fish? And so that kind of got us to where we wanted to be. So that was kind of our strategy involved. I know you guys kind of moved into pre-fishing, but maybe you didn't fully kind of unwrap it. I'd love to enter into, if you haven't talked about your pre-fishing, some of you were there for multiple days. What were you trying out? I know you were trying out different boat rants, but Jay, I saw you on the water in tournament day, and you're like, man, my pre-fishing was garbage.
No, this was the worst pre-fish I've ever had. So I went into tournament day like pretty discouraged. Like I didn't think I was going to do good. I had a 9-inch dink is all I had for 2 days of pre-fishing.
Oh, 2 days?
So, no, seriously,
dude,
man.
I was on the water for 3 days and had one 12-inch all 3 days. Oh, and one smallie when Chad and I were chasing smallies and not really trying to find them, but yeah. My pre-fishing was the same way. It was garbage.
Yeah, it was rough, and it was for all those reasons. I mean, the lake is like insanely large. All of my guys. So I had Dan, Joe, Anthony, and Rick. Only one, which was Joe, has been down to Guntersville before.
Okay,
and he came onto my team probably with 2 weeks left because we couldn't fill that one spot, and he came onto the team.
Okay,
and we did the same type of thing. So we did like a Zoom call. And we're just all looking at the map, squeezing it, you know what I mean? Zooming in. I know. So we had kind of ideas of where we wanted to put in. So the first 2 days we tried the Towns Creek ramp and couldn't get the other guys. I went with Dan and Anthony. They both got some good fish. Dan got a lot of nice ones on top water. I couldn't nail anything down at all. We were finding bait fish like I've never seen them before. Like every 5 yards, just a cloud of bait fish. Couldn't get the bass.
How deep were you?
We were maybe like 10, 15 feet,
okay.
But the bait fish were anywhere in the middle of that. So and I was spotting them, and Anthony was catching them, but I mean I was throwing everything. So I went in with the mindset of throwing what I knew, which was jerk baits in the fall.
Yeah,
all my hard jerk baits. I didn't hit anything with that, man. Didn't hit anything with the top water. Then I went to my confidence bait, which is like just a Kayak 4-inch minnow bait.
Right.
Nothing, man. Like it was rough. So we ended up the second day we switched it up and we went to the other, I think it's like JC's boat launch. Anyways, I talked to Chad about it. I sent him the screenshot. He's like, oh, dude, you got it. He circled it. He's like, right here, huge grass mat, just fish to grass. So sure enough, we did. And my autopilot kept getting stuck in the grass, dude. I was paddling this thing. It's like a barge. Yeah, it was not fun. And it's raining and it's cold. So it was just like a whole trifecta of stuff. Ended up getting that little fish. But at the end of the day, too, practice, pissed off was probably the accurate word. Like, I don't get mad often when I'm fishing, but I was just frustrated. You know that there's big fish there. Just
right.
I couldn't find them.
Yep.
So one of our guys, Rick, was fishing where we ended up fishing tournament day.
Yeah.
And he was hitting them on that second day, getting them at the docks. And I'm much more comfortable fishing docks. So like I told you, I was like, I'm just going to go back to what I know.
Yeah.
We went back there. There was 3 of us there, and we all ended up doing pretty good. So anyways, pre-fishing was incredibly difficult for us.
John, anything to add about your pre-fishing and your team?
All my guys are creek and bank beaters. So
makes sense.
we just like we all spread out really and fished different little creek channels and stuff. And where I think it was Town Creek where I caught that big one, right in front of the first boat, like right off the little ramp there. And but for the next 2 hours, I didn't get a bite when I went back in there. And then I think everybody got down there by was Thursday. So we had like a day, like I fished like so Thursday, like me and like 3 of us went to Crow Creek, and I actually fished there for the Bass Nation state tournament, and I did really good in there, but that was like in September or something.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, I'm at least gonna go check it out again. So I went in there and I caught like a couple 17.5s and a few fish. I'm like, well, at least I know there's fish in here. That's where I'd planned to go. Friday, I went to this like park and like got some drone footage and like just I fished like 2 hours. I wasn't even gonna try. I didn't really want to fish hard, but everybody else had like everybody when we went out, we all had these separate places to go. Nobody really found anything big, like, but everybody caught fish like 16s or 17s. So our goal going in was like, I was like, try to shoot for 18 at least. Everybody go for an 18, and that's kind of was our goal. And then on the tournament day, my biggest was 15.5.
No.
I had 2 like literally look at me in the eye and throw my spinnerbait out on tournament day. But I threw a spinnerbait, and I don't throw a lot of different lures, so they were hitting the spinnerbait a little bit softer, but I was still catching them.
Okay.
And just going up down little creek channels. So I don't know if we want to talk about the tournament yet, but as far as pre-fishing, I just kind of hit like 3 spots, and I'm used to big lakes. Like I live 30 minutes from Chickamauga, so I'm used to the Tennessee River system.
Okay.
But I don't fish. I don't ever go out on the lake. I just creek fish. And so I know enough about lakes that where if you can find some fish, there's usually a lot, and usually there's fish everywhere. You know, for most of the part, most of these kind of lakes, there's fish all over.
Right.
Obviously, a lot of times there's gonna be better areas, but so yeah.
Yeah, there we go. So my pre-fishing day, our team kind of split up because we still weren't quite sure, even though we had Jack doing pre-fishing for the previous week. And so Jake and I were like, okay, we'll just stick together. We'll go to this place. It's got some flats, I've been told. It's produced fish in the past, but we'll see what happens. And then my other 2 teammates, Greg Massa goes to a completely different spot. He never actually ever comes back and fishes the spot with us. He's in a completely different spot, probably a couple miles away. And then Jack on pre-fishing day ends up like picking up a hitchhiker and a dog who has a broken leg, and then ends up like driving them like hours to like Athens, Georgia. So he never actually gets around to pre-fishing at all. But he's probably feeling pretty good because he's been doing it all week. Well, we get into this spot, and I just start picking them up. I start with a jig. Before I started coming down there, I was like, okay, the weather pattern that I'm seeing down where we're heading really was what I was fishing 3 weeks ago in Ohio. It looked exactly the same. And so I was like, all right, I was catching them on jigs off of timber, and I'm going to go down there. I'm going to bring all my jigs with me, and they should be picking them up. And so I was picking them up here and there, picked them up off a rock, picked them up off a lay down, but they weren't huge, and they weren't hammering all the time. And so I just had this spidey sense. I was just editing my video for the pre-fishing and for the tournament recently. So I was like, oh, you know what? They shouldn't be hitting a wacky worm, but threw that on and started skipping docks. I mean, the docks. So if you're from Ohio, you've never been on Lake Guntersville, docks up here in Ohio are like just a slip. And you put a boat on the left and on the right. Docks down Lake Guntersville, man, they have like gangplanks that go out to them, and they're probably like 10x the size of docks that I'm used to. And they're insane. They're probably like 50 pylons underneath, and there's all kinds of boards going left and right and up and down, and all kinds of security boards because people don't want you fishing under their docks. And then people with their garages they put down after they bring their boat in and lift it up, there's gates on the bottom of that, so you can't skip underneath their docks. And so luckily, I love skipping. I've been skipping for years now, so I got to dial it in. So if you give me a tiny little hole I mean, if you give me 7 inches, I typically can skip a worm into that hole. And so I'm like, all right, I'm coming up with these docks. I'm like, you can fish the back of these things. You can fish the sides, the fronts. And with all the pylons, you could probably cast 30 to 40 times per dock to pick up a fish that may be sitting on one side or the back side or further way back in. So I started skipping, not like just to the edges of the docks. I'm going like 20, 30 feet under the dock as far as I can. And that's when I started picking them up. So I started going from dock, the dock, the dock, the dock. And on pre-fishing day, I think it was a 20.5. Then I picked up like 16. I was like, man, this is where they're at. And I started thinking to myself, started looking around. I see one other kayaker outside of my teammate. And so I called Jack up. I'm like, Jack, like this place is loaded and nobody is here pre-fishing it. He's like, oh, it's probably because they're going to be there tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I was
going to say everybody and their brother who paid attention to the KBF watched Garrett Cole, I think it was, win the Challenge Series championship because he was skipping all those docks right just all through there and just slaughtering them.
So I started thinking to myself, it's like, Jack, you either like this can't be a best kept secret because this place is loaded. Almost every dock I felt like had some type of fish under it. And we're talking underneath these docks was either like 2 feet of water, and depending where you were in this particular area, it could be like 6 to 8 feet of water. And so it was fascinating. So I was thinking to myself, okay, if people are like, you don't want to make all these bath of sore mouths. But I'm thinking to myself, if there's going to be a ton of people coming tomorrow, I'm just going to fish the crap out of these docks today and make sure they're scared of anything the next day. And so that's what I did all day long, just start skipping docks. Like I'll come back tomorrow and hopefully I'll pick up a few that didn't see it, which is going to be really hard because I'm skipping like 50 casts a dock. Yeah. So that was my strategy. So I was like, I literally only pre-fished one area the entire time. I only had one day to pre-fish. I fished a spot and I was like, I got to come here tomorrow because it's the only spot that I know. Gramps, anything to add there?
So for us, the pattern the couple of weeks before was jackhammer everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And so we threw that a lot in the pre-fishing, but I say that knowing that on the final day of the championship down there, when the wind really picked up and the water kind of got even more stained, I had to move away from the jackhammer because I was hurting. I only had 2 fish, 2 14s. And, I'm still trying to be in the top 30%, which is my goal in any tournament I fish in. There was 92 in the championship, I think. And I really wanted to stay in the goal was to try to crack the top 20. But oddly enough, I saw the stained water and it really reminded me a lot of these places I fish around here. And that's when I pick up that chartreuse, blackback 6 cents crankbait. And I proceeded to go up a stretch of about 150 yards and picked up a 13, a 17, a 20 and a half. Woo. And then I called the 13 with the 16, which, moved me up into the 26th position in the final standings. And then I ended up finishing 20th on the nose in like the Challenge Series Angler of the Year standings. So I had a lot of confidence in that crankbait, but I was still trying to find that chatterbait bite when we came back and pre-fish for Knucklehead, because that was like the hot ticket. But for me, it didn't turn out to, because pre-fishing, they just weren't on it. Now, Liz and Jeremy were in the cove that you guys were. Yeah. So we knew the docks would be a thing. We were leaving those alone. And Liz and Jeremy were really tearing up the flats where there were balls of bait fish. Yep. And I mean, they were tearing up everything. You could watch like 12 and 13 inches just chasing your chatterbait and spinnerbaits like all day long. But we knew we wanted to leave the docks alone because we knew that would be a thing in case, in case we had to move over there. But yeah, it was just one of those things. But we kind of left that alone because we absolutely knew that place would be flooded. But Liz, that's where she did so good, and she figured everybody's going to be on the docks. I'm going to be out here in the flats, and that's kind of what her strategy was. So, we knew going into tournament day that we were going to have a different game plan, and, then really just went to work executing it come tournament time.
Heck yeah. So coming down with the strategy, pre-fishing. So first share, like in your mind what's going on, your kind of state of mind. What are things that you're changing at the last second? And then walk us through your personal experience and your team's experience for the first part of the tournament. Jay, how about you kick us off?
All right, so we ended up, there's three of us, Anthony, myself, and Rick. So we ended up going to the same spot where you were at, where you guys are fishing at, right? So we decided to go
Grand
fish.
Central Station that morning.
I know, dude. Well, you know what? It's funny because we pulled up, again, we were uncertain.
Yeah.
But who pulls up behind us? Chad Hoover. So I was like, all right, so I guess we got a good spot. So I was happy to see every other place we went to, there was no other kayaker. So once I saw all those cars there, I was like, all right, we're on to something here. But sure enough, we pull in, and once we're on the water, I mean, it's pitch black for at least 20, 30 minutes. So I knew I wasn't going to skip no docks. I was going to get hung up if I even tried. So I just started working the shoreline, just like I do here in PA. Worked the shoreline, did some jerk baits, some top water. Alas, nothing worked out. But Rick had told us you've been doing the wacky worm all day on Friday under the docks, and that's where he landed a couple decent ones. I think the biggest one was maybe 16 and a half or so. So anyways, while the sun was coming up, I was working my way towards the docks along with Anthony, who decided to do the rip wraps first over by the bridge. By the launch.
Over there. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he showed up empty-handed too. So we just all ended up working out the docks together after a couple hours in, and sure enough, wacky worm just started slaying them. But we found that it was they were a little picky with color because I didn't get any hits on green pumpkin.
None.
But I believe you guys were using
That's
green
all
pumpkin.
the fish with GP.
Yeah, we weren't getting any hits, but once I saw Rick was using this like weird peach colored Senko that I would never pick up ever if I saw it. But sure enough, so I started switching out to light colors, and that's when we started landing fish.
I was gonna say, did he get that from John?
Yeah. So Rick. So first one to catch was Rick, who caught he caught us a 15 and a half and ended up upgrading to an 18-incher.
Dang. Okay.
I got first bass for me was a short 11 and a half. There you go. That just color just like that. So my first bass was a short. Ended up going up, switching to a weightless fluke, and that's where I ended up catching all the rest of my fish. Was a smoked shad weightless fluke on a Texas rig. And then I ended up getting a 15 and a half incher, a 14 incher, and then stapled in with my 19 and a half, all just working the docks. And just like you said, there's like 100 different angles you can take on those docks. Because over here, it's the same thing. They're just like floats here with a couple, and they're chained down.
You get 3 casts.
Yeah, man. So that big one, I got him at like 2.5 feet of water on the walkway, the back end of the dock. Didn't think anything was there, but it's, mud as well. So just tossing that twitch bait around and ended up nailing that one.
Really? On the gangplank. See, I didn't fish a lot of the gang. I mean, I cast it a few times, but they weren't.
See, the thing I love about the autopilot is you could finagle in any little nook and cranny without any issues. And JT will tell you thing. I mean, that wind was not doing anything to me. I was chilling. So I was making my way all the way up to those walkways, and that's where I ended up getting the big one.
19.
So
that's not bad.
No,
19
man.
and a half. That's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I caught a couple of small ones after that, but stapled in with the 19 and a half. Anthony, who was with us, ended up getting a 14 and 3/4, I believe was the biggest one. We had, our other guy, Joe, he was fishing some back creeks from a different launch. I don't even know exactly what launch he was at, but he was just fishing grass, chatterbaits and crankbaits, all pre-fish, and he ended up doing really good. And he was just steadily upgrading from a 15 to 15 and a half, 16, 17, ended up finishing off with a 19. So we had some big fish for our team. So he ended up with 19 as the biggest. And then our last guy, Dan, unfortunately, he killed it in pre-fish. Couldn't nail a fish down during tournament day.
It happens, man. So, it happens.
Yeah.
Was he in the area?
No, so he ended up staying in Towns Creek because that's how he did really good the first 2 days.
Oh, it's a bummer when you kill it the day before and you're like, where the crap are they today?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, we were he was super prepared, and he was from the beginning. Anything he was throwing in there, he was like just absolutely killing it. But the day of, I think that in the creeks, and I don't do a lot of creek fishing, so maybe John, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot more movement going on in there with the bass. Like that, I don't think they stay as steady back there. So he was finding them on Thursday and Friday, but Saturday he caught a 24-inch drum, but he's catching all the wrong species.
Yeah,
it
that
can definitely
cold
change.
front, that cold front changed a lot of strategies.
No.
Yeah. Heck yeah. I came across Chad toward the end of the tournament day. And he was like, hey, I mean, I don't know what's going on. I've been patterning bass out here in the grass flats for the past 3 days, and I cannot pick them up. And also, it didn't help because you guys know how cold it was that day. Randomly in the area we're fishing, you hear this. What in the world is going on? And the biggest jet ski I've ever seen in my entire life just rips out from one of these docks that we've been fishing other, and just starts ripping through the grass flats. I mean, for like an hour and a half. So any bass that was out there is hiding. And eventually he came back. So it probably didn't help anybody whose strategy was out there. Liz was doing good.
I paid that guy to do that, man.
Yeah, there you go. Pay the Jet Ski Association. Oh my goodness, so good. Anything else to add there, Jay, before we pass it off to John?
No, we're good, man. That's about it.
Right on. Real quick. We had a few hours left in the tournament. I met you out in the water. We started talking. I thought you guys, because you had 18, 19, and 19, right, in your team?
Yeah. Yeah, so we were in a good spot. I mean, we just had needed one guy to upgrade his 14.5, and if Dan would have caught anything, I think it would have put us in like 4th or 3rd. I mean, even with a 12-inch bass.
Tough.
No.
John, walk us through maybe your mindset with strategy coming in, and then after pre-fishing, what it changed to, and then what your team did and what you did on tournament day.
Well, my mindset was the same. I was going to start out in an area that I'd caught fish before. The one time I'd been at Guntersville, and I'm always looking for a creek channel. I want to be out of the wind and hopefully away from other anglers. But when I woke up that morning, everybody in my house was gone. We stayed in an Airbnb, and me and another guy were going to the same creek. So I got there like 30 minutes late, and so it was like just getting light out. Two guys went to another spot, and then one guy he jumped around that day. But so I got to Crow Creek. It's a big open wide creek, and it was big enough to where I knew there was fish that are staying there. They're going to be in there. But I didn't catch fish for the first 2 hours. I think I could not figure anything out. I was confident the spinnerbait was going to work because I just throw that a lot, and then I'm like nothing. Start slowing it down. Nothing. I tried a couple different things. I had one of the guys in there. He threw the buzz bait like first thing. It had a giant hit his lure and come off. So he was really aggravated. So I'm like, I knew fish are in there. I'm like, they gotta eat sometime. So I just start working my way around, and then finally I start getting on fish and start catching. But it was. The bites were slow. I went through a few different lures. I went back to the spinnerbait, and I'm reeling along, and all of a sudden, just like weight on there. So it's like it's weird. I'm not getting a good hook set. So I had I just caught one like a 12-incher. I'm like, all right, I got my first one, and then I'm coming back out of an area I'd already fished through. So I'm like, I'll make my way down till it went too shallow. I couldn't go any further. I'm coming back through, and then I just load up on a big one. He comes up, opens his mouth right on the water, and just throws my spinnerbait.
When they're so fat they could barely make it out of the water, like one of those.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to estimate. Like I don't want to. I thought he was like a 19-incher, like 3 to 4 pounds. He had a pretty good sized mouth, so I knew it was like, man, that was a good one. But at that point, I'm like, all right, well, if I'm getting that, I should get another one. And I catch like another like a 14, and then like an hour later, I'm just going down a bank. Nothing's happening. It's been boring. All of a sudden, there's a fish on there. Same thing. Throws it again. Like I never got a hook set. They would bite it and swim towards the kayak. It's driving me crazy. So I'm like, I should have had those, but I don't know. You know how fish are just weird. Fish just do things sometimes you just don't know. So I'm like really frustrated that I lost 2 good ones. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna get how many more chances I'm gonna have because they're not biting real aggressively. Right. They're in there, but they're just so.
I'd be
I ended up catching
after 2 of those scenarios. I'm already frustrated after hearing you tell the story. It didn't even happen to me.
I guess I'm used to losing a lot of fish. It seems to happen. If you fish a lot, especially you fish a lot of tournaments, they're more in your mind. The more tournaments you fish, that's why I like fishing tournaments. Tournaments make you remember things so much more vividly, and like the pressure is on, rather than just random fishing. But I ended up catching like 15 and a half, and I probably catch like 10, 12 fish that are like 13, 14, 15 inches, and I just never could get a big one, never could land a big one anyways, and then I end up moving to another spot that I'd scouted that I just like saw, and I'd never been there. I'm like, I'm gonna go fish there. Okay. And there was a lot more grass and flat area. I go in there and I catch a couple little ones on like a yum dinger, and I make a cast up close to the bank and a fish on a yum dinger, and I had I don't remember if it was weightless or jig head, but like as soon as it hit the water, it goes kadoosh. I was like, what? I set the hook, and it's like peel and drag for a second, and then it just comes loose. I'm like, what in the world just happened? 2 casts later, like same thing, something nails it. I like load up on it. It starts running, and I saw it. It was a bowfin. It jumped, and I was like, "Oh, I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel so bad now." I was like, "That makes sense." I had no idea there was bowfin in there. So I spent like the next 45 minutes trying to find more bowfin. I didn't find any
gosh.
And then I just couldn't get it. But one of the guys, they were in like a creek channel, and they, instead of going shallow, they were going deeper. He caught a 20.25 on a buzzbait.
Dang.
Other guys caught an 18, and one caught a 17, and then the other guy caught a 15. And me and the 15, we both had chances on big fish that we just didn't land them. So they had fun. They had a blast. Everybody caught some fish. We got to go eat out a couple times. So it was really fun. I feel like they really appreciated coming into it, and we all got along really well. So it was a really fun time.
Heck yeah! Oh, it's when you lose them in the tournament, 2 of them, which we know are bigs back to back. Those are things that. So interesting enough, my buddy, bowfin junkie, he's coming down to Cleveland with me, and we stayed an extra day afterwards. And Chad Hoover put us on some juice the following day at a private lake that he had access to, and he's like,
Hero
Lake. Hero Lake. You can kayak this area here and fish it, but if you walk back to the back lake, I've caught a 9.8 back there as well. So he's caught almost 2 10-pounders in this lake. So I'm like, okay, sweet. I'm gonna walk back here because the water's low and it makes it easy to walk around this lake. So we get back there, second cast, boom, I nail a 21. I'm like, holy crap! Run out, get my buddy Jake. Like, hey, we got to walk this back here. He gets back there, and he misses one. And just pops out. He's fishing we're fishing shaky heads at this point. Same thing happened a second later. Something loads up, monstrous. Boom, gets it back and just pops out. Like, what is going on back here? About a half hour later, I hear this. I'm like, what? I can't see him because he's on this other side of this island. And I look, and I finally get around to look, and he's laying on the ground. I'm like, what is he doing? Like, bro, you okay? And what had happened is he was kind of shaky heading this thing toward the shore, and this monster bass, he's like probably that 9.8. I mean, I've never seen a tail that big, never seen a fish that big.
Yep.
However, he leans into that bad boy as hard as he can, but there's no length of line to absorb the hook set, right? So he's hook setting it like 5 feet in front of him. I mean, his afterthought's great. He's like, I'm just at this point, he's thinking, I'm not going to lose the third one back here. So he loads up on this thing. It snaps his rod in half and snaps his line, and the beast swims away. And so he had to lay there for about 10 minutes. He was so mad. Ugh. So it's brutal. And those are the ones that you remember for a long time. Gramps, walk us through your day, because holy crap. I look at my phone like an hour in. I'm like, what in the freaking crap is going on with Team Gramps? You were like 20 inches further than anybody else. And they're not small fish either. I was like, this is going to be a long day. Walk us through what changed in pre-fishing and kind of what you and your team were doing.
Well, we kind of stayed away from everywhere we actually planned to fish until tournament day. The only exception was Liz. She and Jeremy had gone into some 19s or so chasing back in the flats between the docks you guys were fishing.
Mm-hmm.
There were, like I said, huge balls of bait fish. The day before Thursday, the day before the pre-fish, Alex on the Water on Twitch, we were over in the area that we knew that Gene and his team would be fishing, but they put in and then went down. We had put in and gone more towards the river because one of the advantages we have is Antoine, who was also on my team. And let me back up a second too, because I'm one of the few that's blessed. Every single person that was on my team, I had met in person previously before Knucklehead even existed.
That's right.
Liz was a Fishin' Fam member, and I met her in Florida on Christmas the previous year when we were down visiting my daughter. Of course, I brought the cold weather from Indiana down with me, and it was 29 degrees while I'm trying to go to Florida and catch big fish in Tampa. We ended up hanging out at a coffee shop. Alex, I had met at the previous year's KBF National Championship at Kentucky Lake. And then Antoine is a local hammer here in Indiana who is also on the Old Town Pro staff with me. We're regional pro staff.
Oh,
and
nice.
There's not many tournaments up here that he hasn't won. The dude's a flat stick and will be traveling nationally next year. So, I was blessed to have, and of course, Jeremy was my fifth, and he's been fishing his whole life, one-armed. That's what he's down to these days, but he can still catch them. So we had an idea and we had thoughts. And like I said, we eliminated a lot of water during pre-fishing, but I want to bring up real quick the area that we went and fished where Gene and his team were going to be, because anybody who's followed me for a long time knows I cannot catch fish on frogs. I mean, I'm up to whopping 2 now, but we were pre-fishing an area that some of the guys in my house were fishing during the championship, and big grass mats off this point. And I missed a big one. But we knew because we were there more later in the day. But I missed a big one on the Spro flapping frog. He just didn't get it. But the blow up was insane.
Mm-hmm.
And so me and Alex had kind of pre-fished, and I said, "You need to be back here at sunup." So he actually went there on the pre-fish Friday. And if you go watch his Twitch stream, you'll see him catch the one I missed because it was bit in the exact same spot. And then he caught another 20 on the point that he was working. And then, like I said, he probably lost a 7-pounder at the boat during the pre-fish. And you'll just watch. Darn. But so that's where we knew coming into the tournament day, that's where he and Antoine would fish. And flapping frogs were locked into their hands basically all day. Now, Antoine also went up and fished some places that he fished. To be fair, I had a hammer on my team because he finished 9th in the Challenge Series tournament. So he fished in the money. So, he had his juice that he was working as well. But they literally locked these Spro flapping frogs in their hands all day. And then Jeremy and I's strategy was to fish where we fished the weeks before, coming over the grass. Because the funny thing about the bay that was right next to you guys, had Jay's dude gone under the bridge and worked the rocks 2 weeks before, I think we pulled off a 19, 2 18s, 3 17s, and some 16s just on the other side of that bridge. Now, this time, I don't think we caught a single fish off that bridge.
Crazy.
I couldn't, but there was so much grass pushed in, you probably would have had to punch to catch those fish. But the wind had blown so much of that eelgrass up against that bank. And unless you were willing to sit there and throw punching out somewhere else, the bridge was kind of like meh.
Yeah.
But Jeremy and I, kind of looking back in retrospect, we fished it backwards than we should have because the wind was blowing the opposite direction from 2 weeks ago. That being said, it was actually pretty, like I said, we had a plan. We knew there were fish in our area, and we just had to do our job and catch them. So I'm working, and like Jay had said, I lifted my motor up, and I'm fishing across this grass flat in Lindsay Cove, and Jeremy's on the outside edge of it, throwing frogs, just trying to get them, pull them up out of the grass. And I'm paddling. I don't know how that worked, but my arms are still good enough to paddle. Jeremy can't do it. He's got to pedal. So, we're working it. And then we go down and not a single bite. Now I'm pre-fishing, or in the tournaments before, our buddy OEF5, he probably caught 10 or so fish out of just this one cove.
Wow.
But we knew they were in the area. So we get down at the end of this grass flat. And when Jeremy gets to the bridge, throws this frog in there where the bridge meets the grass line, bang, 18 and a quarter on the board. Then I think Alex puts up an 18 something on a frog over in their area, because where they were was on the opposite side of like that peninsula that you guys were on. So they were literally on the other side where Gene and them were. He was just hiding until they all got down further out. But and then I turn around, and by this time I'm done frog fishing. I've only got so many frog tosses in my day before I turn around. And I knew the jackhammer wasn't the juice, but this thing had been the previous, time there. And so this pretty much stayed locked in my hand all day.
What's
and the funny thing is, I caught more fish.
What are you showing for those?
Podcast. Yeah. So this is the 6 Sense Crush 100X, and it's in the chartreuse with the black back. Anytime I'm in any kind of stained water, I don't know what it is, but the bass love this thing. And like I said, in the pre-fish, in the tournament, the couple weeks before, I caught 4 keepers in 150 yards at the end of the tournament that bumped me up into the top 30. So I had confidence in it. So I tied it on, and I worked the bridge where we had caught a lot of fish in the past. Nothing there. And I was feeling confident because Jeremy just caught one. So I started working, the rocky bank on the opposite side, cast across this point where, oddly enough, none of us had caught a fish before. Boom, 18-incher. Then Antoine turns around, catches one, 18 and a half. Boom. And we're like, oh,
you guys are on fire.
Okay. And then Liz is like, oh my God, I just lost a 19. I forgot my net. And we're like, oh no. So we're in the group chat, and she's like, should I go back to my car and get it? And I'm like, yes. I mean, if you're on something, it's worth the time and effort to go get your net. And so she takes off and goes and gets her net. And then like 2 hours later, bite just kind of like, I say it slowed down. It seemed like for everybody else, I caught so many fish, it wasn't funny. It was like, I catch that 18, then a 17, and then a 16, and then a 15. And then they went down like the 12s and dinks. And, I catch one on a jackhammer here and there. I throw some, some Zoom speed worm through the grass, catch 3 little ones. But I'm like, I got to put this crankbait back in my hand, And the problem I went, and then in the cove that we were in, it's like, okay, time for me to go hit these docks, because I know everybody else is catching fish on docks. We were just trying to beat up what we could find first. And Liz called, later on, Liz is like, boom, 20 and something. And we're like, yes. Okay. Turns out she then lost her. No, she caught a 15 first. So she gets her net. She gets back out, catches a 15. Hey, we got a limit. We're feeling good. We passed Fluke Master. We're sitting in first. Now we're like, all right, guys, feet on the gas. We have to get upgrades because it's Guntersville. I mean, anyone cast could be the one that, makes or breaks your tournament, So we're grinding all day. Liz runs into Chad, they're talking smack and this and that. And then she comes back and catches a 20, like right in front of him. And, she's doing her little, thanks for the, giving him all kinds of juice. But, that was, you guys had a lot of people over there. So
a lot of people
at around lunchtime, like I said, I'm still catching fish, but I'm telling everybody, we need upgrades, boys. We need upgrades. And there's no lead that's safe. It's Guntersville. And about that time, you catch a 22. And I was like, they're closing in, And then Liz comes back with the 20. So we're like, all right, feeling a little bit, creating a little space. But we knew we needed at least a 19 and a half. There's no seal in the deal. It's Guntersville. Anybody, any one casts, You just gotta, and there was no taking potty breaks. There was no eating lunch. There was no nothing. We knew we had to keep our foot on the gas. And so I think it was after she caught that 20, and then I think maybe somebody on your side caught another one to kind of move. I told Jeremy, I said, we got two choices here. I said, I don't think they're here like they were because we should have caught one by now. I said, we can either go play defensive and get everybody over there in the cove with Liz, because obviously the more people that are there on every dock is less that they have a chance to catch another upgrade. But we didn't know if all 5 guys of your team were there or if they were spread out kind of like we were.
Right.
So Jeremy's like, dude, we caught fish here. We know we're good here. So we was like, okay, we're going to stay put. We know it's going to be a thing. Now, I would have played this differently as the captain had I caught in the group message that Antoine and Alex were, they were not getting anything where they were. So they moved. And then I find out later they're at our ramp, which, we were fine with, because I'm thinking, we've caught 19s here. We've caught 20s. All we need is one. Part of me says if I'd have caught them on the road, I would have sent them to your ramp just because Jeremy and I were confident that we could pull out a 19 or 20, but also to put more people in your area.
Yeah.
Because you're playing defense, to try to win too. It's a big deal to a lot of people. Especially me on Veterans Day, being a veteran, I'm already thinking, we gotta clutch this. It's a lot riding on it. So I go back and I move into these docks, and where I caught that 20 and a half the couple weeks before, but they were on the outside edges of the dock back then. And I kind of figured after watching some other people's videos, there are going to be some fish up under these docks. So I bust out my skipping jig and I'm tearing up every dock, then some, just working, and nothing. Finally, at some point, catch, my smallest was an 18. I catch like an 18 and 1875. And, but that was it. And after that, it was just, we can kind of continue to work our patterns and see what we can find, but ended the day with 94 inches. And, we did everything we could and fished until the last minute, but we were happy with where we were. And I will say this, and I feel for Antoine because he had the winning fish on. You watch his spinning rod. If you see his video, this fish bit a tube and ran that rod under the boat and then just
popped him.
Was gone. So coulda, woulda, shoulda, but that's tournament fishing, and you can't cry over second place for sure. It was, we all had the goal. We literally talked about beating Chad and beating Gene.
Oh, come on now.
Darren and I both had a plan because we sat there, a couple days before when he came over to the B&B. We sat out in the driveway, smoking some stogies, having a good time. Darren and I have been talking for more than a year, and it was good to meet each other, in person and share some time together. And, if I was going to have to fall to somebody with the greatest comeback, then, there's no better person and for me to do that. So knowing Darren, it was really awesome. But yeah, man, you got to tell your team story now, because you had to have a few different miracles to actually, get where you were. And I mean, we put the numbers up and we set the bar high.
Yeah.
You guys had to do the work.
Yeah. Respect. So we wake up early. It's a 50-minute drive to this boat ramp, which only 3 people were at the day before. And I get there and there's already like 5 kayaks, and there's already like 6 kayaks mooring, feels like, out by the ramp. And then Chad rolls up. I'm like, what in the world? And it just seems like there's just a parade of kayaks coming into this boat ramp. I'm like, holy crap. All right. It's good to know I'm not the only one that knows that they're here from the day before. But Jack was absolutely right. No one was pre-fishing it the day before to kind of keep them nice and juicy for tournament day. And Jay, I didn't even see you come in. I think I was already out in the water as you were potentially coming in. We must have just missed each other. It was also pitch black, and there was also probably, what did you say, 15
million
kayaks?
people there.
Yeah, there's probably 15 out of the 65 kayaks that were leaving from that one launch, which is kind of crazy to think about because Guntersville is so freaking massive. So we have 4 of our team members at this ramp. Tammy shows up late and she's like, not like late, but toward the end. She was like, should I go someplace else? There's so many people here. I was like, have you pre-fished any other place? She's like, couple places. So she ended up not going, make the decision to stay. Greg goes to Brown. So I don't even know where he's at. That's where he's pre-fishing the day before. He's not there. So 4 of us are in this hot spot. He's someplace else. I have no clue.
That's literally the spot on the opposite side of that peninsula.
On the peninsula. That's what I figured. Like past Floose Master, past around the corner, and he was up in the creeks doing his thing. I was like, all right. He was catching them, so go. You do you. So I take off, and I go, of course, to the first boat dock where I caught my 20.5 the day before. And I'm just sitting there waiting for lines in. I have my alarm set on my phone. I don't do it a second early. And you can see all these kayaks just flying to different places on the lake. Their lights are going by. It was awesome. And I mean, it was tough start for me. I mean, where I was catching fish the day before, and there was just nothing. I mean, it wasn't the same time I was catching them the day before. And so I'm just going to stick to my strategy, which is wacky worm, every angle, back, side, front, every hole that I could possibly get it in, and skip it through, under, over. I can't tell you how many hooks I sacrificed to those boat docks. I mean, wacky worms, exposed hook. And I can't tell you how many fish I lost, because once you skip it 20 feet under there and they hit it, a lot of times they run left or right. If they're running left and right and you can't pull them out fast enough, they're breaking you off on one of the pylons. And so that
have you ever seen as many dock owners put up defensive stands?
It's crazy.
I was shocked at the number of like fences and boards, everything they could to keep you from fishing under their dock.
Everything. Well, the beauty of it is that the water was down like 2 feet. Yep. And so what typically would be impossible a lot of times to skip where the boat goes in, because they'd have had gates on the bottom of their garage door that goes into the water. There was actually like this much room left, maybe 6-7 inches in some cases where you can get it in there. But I'm having a hard time. I'm looking down on my phone like, holy crap, Gramps just put up 4 18s, and I haven't put up maybe a 14-incher. I go to another juicy dock that produced the day before. I catch 3 fish, like a 13, a 14, and a 16. So I'm sitting at 16, come across Chad. He was like, oh, yeah, this is typically a money dock, and it has like 3 boat stalls in it. And what I was noticing is typically I'll let it sit for like 5 seconds before I start tugging the retrieve. But I was like, okay, I'm just going to let this fall all the way to the bottom. It took a long time, but once I hit the bottom, that's when they actually sucked it up off the bottom. It took off with it. And so started finding a little bit more luck with being a little bit patient, fishing a little bit lazy. Around this time, Jake and Tammy and Jack ends up going, there's like a creek that goes up there. John, you would love this. So they go up into a creek. He actually meets Chad Hoover in there later that day, but not having a whole luck. I tried fishing the creek the day before. I didn't catch a freaking thing, but it's incredibly juicy. It might be only like 25 feet wide, but 10 feet in the middle, and a ton of timber and lay down and grass and all kinds of places for fish to hide. They were just not hitting it for me. So we all pull back out into the main, and Tammy's having a hard time. She's getting like, I think, a 14.5, and she just wants to upgrade. Jack's got a 14 or 15. He wants to upgrade. Jake ends up putting up thinking like an 18. So he's feeling pretty good right about now. And right around like 11 o'clock, I pick up that just skipping a worm. It's just some random dock that probably 3 or 4 other kayak anglers have fished under already, because there's so many people back there fishing docks, and just hook up with, which was my personal best. And so what I love about the pedal drive is that once you start catching, I just start backpedaling and just making this thing lazy. Because like Liz, my truck was so full of crap that I had forgotten my net that morning. And so I'm pulling this thing out. I already know I forgot my net. Luckily, and Gramps, you can attest to this, I haven't fished with a net in years until about 6 months ago when I started tournament fishing. So let's just say I have a lot of practice on bringing fish in and lipping them. And so I was like, all right, I feel somewhat comfortable doing this, and luckily didn't lose one that day by lipping it. So I was able to lip my PB 6.8 pounds, 22-inch from a dock around 11:30. But now I'm thinking like, oh crap. I mean, I'm looking at the big bass board. I mean, I'm tied with another dude who's got a 22-incher. I was like, I'm not going to upgrade. I need to pull off these docks and let my team kind of fill in. So I pull off, and I'm like, Jake, hey, come over here. fish the rest of this line. I don't want to get in here and catch them. So I'll take off. So I was like, okay, tell me what you're doing. I was like, so I go up to this dock, skip my lure. I'm just kind of show them exactly what I'm doing. And boom, I got a 19 hits. I'm like, holy crap. I was like, I'm sorry, bro. I shouldn't even be fishing here. So I back out. Maybe a minute later, he's fishing the exact same spot. And boom, he pulls out a 19 from the exact same spot. There are two fish hanging in the back of this dock in about 5 feet of water. And so he maybe upgraded maybe a half inch or an inch. We call the rest of the team over. We're like, Jake, you and I need to back up because Tammy needs to upgrade her fish. Yep. And so boom, she nails a 17.5. She puts on a wacky worm, starts fishing under these docks. So we're all feeling pretty good. When I caught my 22, JT, we were 1 inch behind first at that point. And then slowly, while we were trying to upgrade the rest of my team, you upgraded, I think, another 2.75. So we were all like, okay, we need 2.75 inches or 3 inches to take first. And Jack, who lives by Lake Guntersville, who's a freaking hammer, puts up like 105, 108 inches during the summer. He's stuck on a 15. We're like, holy crap. Okay, so but he has a torpedo and he doesn't have a pedal drive. And the wind is picking up by this time. And he's like, I typically don't skip docks. Like, I'm not really great at skipping. So he gives it a try, and then like an hour goes by. I'm trying not to like get up all in his business because it's a lot of pressure when you're the guy who needs to upgrade.
That's the hard part when you know you're the local hammer and you're sitting on a 15.
And so I'm like, hey, this is what's working for me. If you want to try it out, great. I need to get out of here and stop fishing the area and get as far away from you guys so you guys can pick up. And he maybe fishes like an hour and a half, and Jake calls me up. He's like, the wind is blowing him into it, and since you're not accustomed to skipping, it just wasn't working out for him. So Jake's like, it is like an hour left, and we had 4 hours to upgrade this fish. And I was like, oh, not that we got it in the bag, but we have plenty of time to upgrade his 15, and so we just gotta be patient and wait for him to do his thing. He gets an hour away, and Jake calls me up. He's like, hey, I'm going to take him off the docks and take him over to where I caught a 19 this morning over in the grass flats over by the oyster bar. You know where that's at, Gramps? Yeah. So Chad, around this time, I meet up with Jay. I'm talking to you on the water. Chad comes by. He's like, oh, I'll take him that peninsula over there. He kind of pointed in the area where they're going to be. And with 18 minutes left, I think he's throwing a jackhammer or some type of bladed jig, I believe. And just pulls it up.
Wasn't a 15, wasn't a 16.
No, it's exactly
wasn't a 17. It was exactly what you needed.
Yeah, it was like the only fish in 4 hours, and it's exactly what we needed. He called me up, and he's like, I think for some reason, I don't know why, but he was like, I think he caught an 18, but he didn't seem excited about it. I was like, bro, he caught a what? I was like, I don't see it on the board because I'm checking it because I'm just goofing around. I was like, did he take a picture of it yet? Like, what's going on? He said, oh, let me call you back. So I'm dying over here doing the backwards math of what this fish needs to be in order to win. And then he calls me back. He's like, it's an 18. It's like, I don't see it on the board. Is it going to fly? It's one of those scenarios where it's going to fly off the board or something stupid like that. And eventually they got it up with 18 minutes left. And it was just a surreal experience. It really was. First team tournament, first tournament in general. But it was wild. And so that's kind of our day. And man, it was a good day. It was a good few days of fishing. Like going down to Guntersville, I caught a 20 and a half, a 22, and a 21. Like those are like top 5 fish for me for the year, all caught within 3 days because I fish in Northeast Ohio. Yep. And so it was wild. All right, we're coming up to the end of the time here. I wanna give everyone a chance. Really quick, I got some starred messages here from people from way back. Sly Fox Fishing said, I fished every chance I got, day and night. He said he probably had 1,000 hours of fishing and more to qualify.
Wow.
for the Knucklehead. Rose put in the work.
Fished every one of mine and a bunch of the Burley guys just trying to get a team. It was awesome. He was working.
Getting it done. I love it. Creek Crawler, who fished a month trying to get on my team, he said, Pro tip: don't try to catch smallies to qualify unless you're up in St. Clair. He came close to winning a spot on the team. Long name here. He said, fun fact, Knucklehead was my 4th time in a kayak. I bought 1 month before Guntersville. You guys got to remember, this was open to bank anglers for the series, but you had to have a kayak for the championship. And so perfect scenario is someone who won off the bank and then had to get a kayak for Knucklehead.
Yeah.
Well,
So if I could say something.
Daniel Pierce, who caught that 22 that you guys were tied with, caught his 22 in pre-fishing. It was like his 4th or 5th time in his old town.
Yeah. That's wild, man. So I thought when I first heard that this was open to bank fishermen, my first reaction was like, why? It's weird. It's kayak bass fishing. But after talking to the guys down there, so one guy on my team, Anthony, he didn't even own a kayak when he came up to the championship. The kayak he brought was a demo from a dealer in Florida that said, take it for the weekend. If you like it, you'll buy it. Yeah. So he brought a demo up. But he was saying how he was able to bank fish the whole year, and knowing that he would get the kayak at some point, it opened up his like realm of possibilities. And I actually, after talking to him, I was like, that is really cool, because I've heard there's multiple people there that were able to land spots fishing off the bank. You know what I mean? Like, and it is. I mean, talking about expanding the world of kayak fishing, like that's.
Well, Fly Fox caught a bunch from the bank. Liz caught a bunch from the bank. Daniel Pierce. I mean, there were so many people. Caro Ferg, fan favorite down there, who made her way onto the underdogs. She's got a kayak, but she mostly fishes from the bank. And, she was out there paddling around doing her thing. And then they ended up in 3rd place. So the whole point, obviously, was for us to help, those folks who probably maybe bought kayaks during COVID or whatever, to kind of get more involved. And obviously, the goal of kayak bass fishing gets people butts in boats. That's really what it comes down to. Okay. And this was our way of enticing and getting more people off the bank into the kayaks, so you can experience just that much more. Something that we all know, because that's why we're in kayaks, because it just opens up a whole new world of fishing for so many people.
100%. John, were you going to say something?
No, I mean, I got a lot of guys around me that bank fish a lot. Yep. And but it's like, I like having that option, because there's a lot of creeks that you can bank fish or walk the banks and catch really good fish. I think it's fun just to have that in there. And some of the guys that I knew, that they did that they probably didn't think they were going to win, but they wanted to compete and try to get some fish on the board.
Yeah. Yep.
And they caught them bank fishing and stuff. So it's kind of, I like opening it up, and it does it. Once you just get entered into the tournament, it's going to drive you to kind of, if you want to keep doing it, you're going to find ways to, all right, I got to get in a kayak now. I want to do this. And you can borrow them or use whatever. But yeah, I like how it got a lot of people into it.
Huh. So one of the last questions, really quick, from Bucktail. If you guys met him when you guys were down there, he's like, my first tournament, nailed my PB2, team underdogs. You guys were close to first. Closer than I think anybody realized, because real close.
Because their team was made up of 3 Guntersville hammers, and the small fish on their team was one of those 3. So Bucktail and Caro both pulled in bigger fish. I think he had a 19 and she had an 1875. And so if their other local had smoked one, we'd all been crying in our tears behind them.
Yeah, we would. And it would have happened swift and fiercely, because I was only paying attention to you. You never pay attention really to the person behind you unless you're in first playing defense. And so I really wasn't looking who was close behind. Should have been, but I wasn't. All right, last question for everybody around the board here. What was your most memorable moment from the entire series to the championship? What was like the greatest thing that happened to you, or something you experienced happening to somebody else? Think about that for a second. Whoever wants to go first, go and start.
I've got kind of 2. One was meeting Caro, who is a fan favorite among a lot of our channels. She's in like everybody's live streams all the time. And she's, she told her husband, Jay, that she was reserving 2 hugs, one for me, one for my brother. And, she just jumped into fan fish off for fun. She literally just came to fish and have fun and meet everybody. And so me and Jeremy gave her, we gave her our cove and said, fish here and just go do your thing. We're not going to be on the water all day Friday down there. You just go tear it up. And so when Chad called her name first and the crowd went insane, completely thoroughly enjoyed it. And then she turned around in the save cove because she was like, well, I can't fish with you guys because I'll take fish away. No, you come with us. You're not going to hurt nothing. There's lots of fish in this lake. You're only going to catch your fish, not mine.
Right.
You come and join us. And then my real highlight was you coming over and us hanging out for that hour and a half, sharing a stogie, sharing some stories, having that time. That for me, that all of the different meetups with all of the YouTubers and their followers and fams and family, that to me was the derby was fun. Don't get me wrong, but the meetups and all of the personal stuff going on with everybody and their teams and cross teams was completely incredible. It was everything that I hoped it would be.
And beating Chad and Gene. What?
And beating Chad and Gene.
I love it. John Jay?
Yeah, I'll go. A couple things. One of them was me and all my guys. We went. Was it? I think it was. I can't remember which night it was. I think it was Friday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and we went to a place in Guntersville on the water and ate. I don't know. It was just an awesome. It was really fun. Just go hang out, sit around, eat like a really good meal, like everybody, and just talk. As far as all anglers, you get along so well with other guys that are fishermen, and they're just talking about fishing and doing stuff, and so I really appreciate the group of guys that won on my team were really, really awesome guys. And then second was probably I wish we had a little bit more time to hang out with y'all guys. I really barely got to see y'all, but I know it's more for the fans, so I try to spend my time with my guys and doing stuff. But at the meetup at the end, I had several people that weren't on my team that I'd never met before that came up to me and were like, "Hey, I really appreciate your stuff." Or a couple guys were like, "You helped me get into fishing more," and stuff like that. Yep. So, I've been doing YouTube for 6-7 years now, so I've kind of been doing it for a little bit, and that kind of stuff like that. Kind of it's I kind of forget that that sometimes what we do really does help people, and people do get a lot of enjoyment out of whatever it's making one video or making a bunch of videos. There's people out there that really appreciate it, and it was nice to hear that from some of the people.
Jay, what do you got for us?
It's for me, it's more or less the same. I mean, my time there in the actual series is really limited because I had 6 weeks from the time Chad said come on board to the end of the series. So I didn't really get that time to build with my guys beforehand as each one was winning a month. But being down there and actually meeting up with my team and being able to chat with them. And we did spend some time on the phone. When I was actually driving down, I was talking to some of them on the phone for an hour and a half. Same thing on the way up. I was actually we were calling each other because we were all driving home. But building with them was really cool. Obviously, meeting people. I mean, because me and JT have talked, me and Darren have talked, and Chad and seeing all y'all in person, it felt like I already knew y'all. It was super weird. I mean, everything was the same. But it was cool just meeting everyone and kind of seeing being part of it, even though I just came in on the back end of it, being part of something that meant so much for everybody. Because I thought it was probably one of the best trips of my life, going down there.
Yeah.
It was cool, man. I mean, you can't beat the kayak fishing community. I feel like I've met a lot of guys that are bass boat fishermen. I'm like, they can't stand up to us. They're none of them are they don't have that same camaraderie that I feel like kayak fishing holds.
For sure.
Yeah.
I would love to see a boondoggle or something down there in the spring where it's just a free for all. Everybody shows up, goes out, fishes together, makes videos with everybody, and just goes and chases bigs. I mean, sure, you can have tournaments and all that too, but I think and especially a lake like that, I mean, just giants.
Land of giants.
Lots and lots of ramps. I didn't even go to Wheelers. I didn't even have
so
time to
many
go over
ramps. There. Yeah.
No. I got a few. So starting off the series, I was unsure about tournaments. I didn't know if it was going to ruin fishing for me. Some people have strong opinions about it, where it just becomes all about the tournament and you lose your love for just going out there and kind of relaxing. So I was worried about that getting into it, but really grew to love it, especially the month-long tournaments. Just how can I do over a period of time? And I really surprised myself because I never done a tournament before. And I have a YouTube channel that teaches kayak fishing. Am I any good? Right?
Yeah.
I didn't, you don't know unless you start competing to a degree. Like, I know I can catch fish and I get on them, but to what degree can I do it? And so I surprised myself with 4 months of over 90 inches, with one being 97 inches for Northeast Ohio. I was like, wow. So that was a boost of encouragement for myself. I made a couple really close fishing friends up here this past year. One of them made it on my team, which went down and we had a blast. And I mean, I've had all you guys on my show. JT, never met you before. John, never met you before. Jay, never met you before. Chad, never met you before. AAA English, never met them before, but had talked to them before. So of course, when you get down there, that's a blast. John, you're a lot taller than I anticipated you being, to be completely honest. The night, of course, I had a stogie. Gene was there, and a bunch of other people I met Liz for the first time. That was awesome. And it means more to us than as a content creator when you come up to us and say, hey, that one video that you made really helped me out, even with purchasing a kayak that now I love and enjoy. Like, man, that hits for us. So I had a couple of people do that, and it meant more to me than the trophy, really, because why we started YouTube channel, everyone got their own story. But mine was I started YouTube channel because I wanted to teach my girls, who are now 7 and 6, how to fish, and they might not want to learn until maybe I'm gone. So I needed to chronicle it, and that was the beginning of it. And so my core of what I want to do with a channel is help people. And so when someone comes up and says, "You've helped me," that trumps anything else that happened this past weekend for me. And so it was a freaking awesome weekend. Any other things you guys want to share? Any other thoughts you had before we close that bad boy?
Unless you're gonna have your other guys on, I want to know what they did with the money. Like we didn't really mention it much, but I wanted to hear anything about what their plans were. They have any goals they're gonna buy or stuff like that? Anybody talk about that?
Well, if you know about the payout, I don't get any of the payout, right? So
Right.
the team captains, if you didn't know this, just got some a part of the revenue from the signups over the 4 months. And so the teams got to split $2,500. I only was able to talk to one, which was Jake. Jake has been praying about going on a mission trip to, I think, the Dominican Republic for a while now. He was praying with the pastor. He's like, I just don't have that cash, and I don't know where it's come from. So their pastor, they got together. They was praying like the week before that the Lord would provide a way. And in a roundabout way, felt like he provided a way. So now he has the money to go on that mission trip. And so that's the only story I have for you right now, because that's the only one I'm talking about. But that was
honestly, I'm
rad.
gonna sit there. I gotta make a comment before we're done. I was talking to the Lord on the way home, because part of me was sulking a little bit because I was trying to represent veterans, and I was like, what else could I have done? Okay, I know you have a plan for something, and I appreciate the fact that John is a man of faith, and I don't know Jay well enough, but I'll make assumptions. But I've known Darren for the last year now, just calls and texts and doing streams together, where he stands with the Lord and the missions that he does and the charities that he works for. And I said, it stings a little bit coming in second, but if I'd have been behind all day and I came back and finished in second, I would have been grateful as you can get. You know what I'm saying? But I said, somewhere, somehow, there was probably a bigger plan, because it was one of those things. So hearing that now the guy is fully funded for his mission, it's like I knew there had to be something, because I was in the truck talking to my mama, on the way back, and I'll do that when I'm on the water, and I knew there had to be a bigger plan. So I absolutely love hearing that, knowing that Gene's son is out on his mission right now. And, it's just great to hear stories like that too. So thank you for sharing that with us, because that I knew there had to be something bigger. I knew it's going to be just as much fun next year. And, this thing is just going to keep snowballing and getting bigger. But I'm really glad you shared that with us.
Yeah, man, for sure. OEF, thank you so much for your support. Saw you just made a gift. Thank you so much. All goes back into the channel here. And thank you for a sick meal at the meetup. Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
Matt and
meats.
Serena just fired it up. I
meats.
mean, they are awesome.
Well, guys, we are way over time, but all of you are class acts. I am honored to call you friend. So thank you so much for coming on tonight. Thank you for our friendship around kayak bass fishing. Chad, I know you're not on, but thank you for putting this all together.
Yep.
And providing that community that I hold near and dear to my heart. And I know you guys do too. So thank you so much. And if you're listening to the podcast on the Wendell Fishing Podcast, we'll see you again next Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And I know that Hickman Outdoors has their podcast, and John has a podcast, and Jay's getting ready to start a podcast. So follow them all. So you guys have a great.
Gregory will be on with me live on Monday.
Ooh,
Nice.
nice.
Talking about his new kayak adventure series.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yep.
Heck yeah. All right, guys. Well, have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
All right, Darren.
All right,
Thanks.
guys.
God bless.